everyone, my name is Sam, and thanks for checking out this video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below, hit the bell notification, and give the video a thumbs up. This is not my normal situation. I am in Edmonton right now as I film, and I'm driving home, but it'll be dark by the time I get back, and this has to go up on Sunday, so we're just gonna deal with it. And on top of that, I didn't read as many books as I normally do in a week. However, 2 of them are decent-sized books. They were books that I was really excited about and didn't want to rush through. And I also worked like my other job last weekend, and I worked like regularly throughout the week basically. So I didn't really have a weekend time, and I was frantically trying to like adult stuff because I was gone this weekend. So I'm actually still happy with the 3 that I got through. So the first book that I read this week was Escaping from Houdini by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the 3rd book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I apologize, I'm definitely going to be swiveling this whole time. I can't not in a swivel chair. But yeah, this is the 3rd book in Escaping from Houdini, or no, the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. And it follows, the main story is still Audrey Rose and still Thomas. They are on the Titanic though, taking a trip, why did I do this? Taking a trip from London to the US, and that is where her uncle has been kind of summoned, and they're supposed to be like his right-hand people. And unfortunately, as happens with Audrey Rose and Thomas, a murder occurs, several of them, on the boat, and we interact with this kind of circus carnival group, and there's a variety of suspects within them, and then there's almost like a romance triangle that develops, sort of, but not really, with Audrey Rose, Thomas, and one of the carnival characters. We also get to know more about Audrey Rose's cousin and her sort of romance that has drifted her away from London and her privileged position. And we get a little bit of Houdini, and it was just, I actually, of the other, like, I've thoroughly enjoyed all the books in this series, but this is definitely my favorite. I feel like Audrey Rose grew an awful lot. There were a lot of challenges to her relationship that I feel like were much more realistic, with her relationship with Thomas, that were much more realistic than the rest of the challenges they faced in the other books. And I just thought there was, the other 2 books also I found, like, there was a lot of, like, false finger pointing, like the author was purposely misleading you, misdirecting you to think so-and-so was the murderer, and then in the end it was someone totally different. I didn't find that so much with this one. I found this was more of, like, we're just going to throw information at you, and you're not going to totally understand everything until it's all revealed in the end, that these are kind of distantly connected, which I didn't hate. It was just different. I was expecting it to be a little bit more similar of mysteries, the way that the first 2 were. But that being said, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I freaking loved this book. I'm definitely going to be rereading this trilogy again before the 4th book comes out. I don't know when. I don't think they have a date, a title, or a cover for it. So we're just going to all sit here and like pretend that our lives can function without knowing how Audrey Rose and Thomas end up. And I'm assuming it's going to be the Holmes murders once they get to the US. I have a sinking suspicion. And I actually just really liked all the historical elements that she included in here. And there's like at the end, like explains like I took some liberties with these things and whatever. And I really, really think she did a good job with all the research and the historical details thrown in, and kept the characters though authentic between like from Stalking Jack the Ripper to the Houdini, and then not to Houdini, to the Dracula, and then to the Houdini. So yeah, highly recommend, and it was really cool. Now I kind of want a tarot deck of cards. Then I read Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This is the 2nd book in the Caraval series, and I don't know why I let her do this to me, because I remember I originally said like, oh, maybe I should just hold on to it until the 3rd book is like a release date. By the way, as of yesterday, the 3rd book got a cover, and it's purple, and I freaking love the color. Though I'm kind of confused why the first 2 are different, like are black, but the other one's purple nonetheless. And it's called Finale, and I think it's supposed to come out in May, I want to say. I don't know. It's 2019 for sure though. But so this follows the kind of all of the things that are revealed at the end of Caraval, and the lineage questions about legend, and this whole concept of like Caraval is just a game, it's not real life, and then that is a lie. So we follow our 2 main sisters, Scarlett and Tella, and the sort of romances that start out at the beginning, or at the end of, no, mid that developed from Caraval, and they're still kind of continuing, but like there's still a lot of that lineage questions about legend, but they're also taken to this new geographic area, and Caraval's normally only hosted like once every few years, but all of a sudden legend organizes it so there was the first one, the Caraval in the first book, and then immediately after they're going somewhere else to this kingdom to host a Caraval, and no one understands why it's happening so quickly, and they've not been given time to recoup. So there's that, and then it's kind of the beginning story almost of Talon Scarlet, that they were trying to find their mother before at the beginning of Caraval, and everything that was promised or that she got entangled with when she started reaching out to Legend with the letters that got them into Caraval at the very beginning of the first book. So it was really, really interesting, all these different strings that I never noticed were kind of just left lingering in the first book. And then everything just went to hell in a handbasket, and there's lots of like really cool magic, and there's so much like mystery and like who the heck is this. I was convinced that Legend was like 5 different people throughout this book. I was so convinced, and I was wrong in the end. And I don't know, there's just like some really good like kind of tropes that are used in a lot of other books that were included, like the whole like bringing a woman bringing a like a fake spouse or engagement or fiance to a kingdom for your political benefit, and like there's potentially like assassination plots and everything, and like power grabs. That was included in here, not to as much of a degree as I want, but it was there, and I'm very curious to see how much, because it's definitely going to be in finale. It has to be. And I'm also confused as to, is this still a part of Caraval? Which I know is probably the whole point of this book, but I got to that and I was like, shit. Wait, is this still... I mean, I know they're saying now that the girls are like, it's not a game, but they're not a part of Caraval. I don't understand. It's legitimately messing with my mind. I'm not okay with what you're doing, Stephanie Garber, and you need to stop it. But only stop it after finale. I also gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars, just like escaping from Houdini. And the third and final book that I read this week was Dust and Shadow by Litsy Faye. The subtitle is like an account of the Ripper killings, but it's just like by Dr. Watson. But it's essentially a combination of Stalking Jack the Ripper with Sherlock Holmes characters. I picked up like all of this author's stuff as soon as I read Jane Steele, because I thoroughly loved Jane Steele. It's so good. I'm like in love with that book. I think though this book suffered, and I think I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. This book suffers from what a lot of other Sherlock Holmes books retellings suffer from. They're not able to capture the characters, which I think is fine if you're able to just catch like little bits and pieces of them, and like, you know, a Study in Charlotte from Brittany Cavallaro. It's Sherlock Holmes and Watson's children or great kids or whatever like that. So they're not going to be identical, but this book, it's supposed to be identical. There's a Sherlock and a Watson, and that is the Sherlock Holmes and that is the John Watson. And it just didn't deliver on that. It's an interesting mystery on its own, and I wasn't able to guess who the Jack the Ripper was until the very end, which I guess, you know, then I wasn't able to guess it because they just revealed it at the end. But I really struggle with books that claim to say things like John Watson. I'm a big fan of Sherlock Holmes. I have 2 dogs named Sherlock and Watson. But this book just really suffers from the same thing that a lot of, like, I think, was it A Study in Scarlet Women that I read a couple weeks ago, but from Sherry Thomas. It's kind of the same thing. It's an enjoyable book on its own, but it took elements of a fantasy and told it was essentially hinted that it's going to be retelling, and then it wasn't able to deliver on that element. Sherlock Holmes is not awkward or has any sort of drug addiction, really, that it seems like. He's very like put together, very proper, very, you know, like stereotypical British, without any of those quirks that made him notorious as Sherlock Holmes. And John Watson, I felt like, was more of just a side character than rather like his cohort. And there's a lot of like, rather than like, and you've seen it in like the BBC show too, where there's a mystery and you can see him, you know, thinking things, and at the end it like kind of flashes back and connects all the dots for you that you missed. But in this one, it's just like, oh, well, this happened, so I'm going to explain to you immediately why this is important. So there's no lingering, like, oh, I wonder why, or why is Watson or Sherlock acting like that? I've clearly missed some sort of information. None of that is included. It's just everything is explained as soon as it happens. And so the reader automatically gets together. So that Sherlock Holmes element was just really lacking, unfortunately. But if you're just interested in a good, like a fun mystery about Jack the Ripper, then this might be a good one for you. So those are all the books that I read this week. Let me know in the comment section down below if you've read any of these and what you thought, or what you read this week if you didn't read these. Make sure to check the description box down below. I will link all of the books to their Goodreads pages, and I will also link all of my social media. If you follow me, I will follow you back.